In June last year, the Capitec CEO Gerrie Fourie sparked a furious debate questioning South Africa's official, 32.9% unemployment rate. Now, he was arguing that the real rate is closer to about 10%. He says the stats often ignore the very vibrant, overlooked informal sector. Our next guest argues that for too long we've treated the township economy as unsophisticated, yet the numbers tell a very different story. Take Stokvels, for example. Last year, Standard Bank tells us inflows in this informal saving instrument breached the 13 billion rand mark. Yet, nearly 80% of these businesses remain unregistered. So the question really must be, why are formalization efforts not succeeding? Xhanti Payi is an economist and a director at Inani Strategies and joins us in studio. Firstly, welcome to 702 Breakfast. We haven't had this dance in a while.
It's wonderful to be here, Bongani, and you guys have really invested in wonderful studios here. I could actually I could even work from reception.
Now. All right, let's talk about this. In a recent Business Day piece, one of your colleagues, Virat Chada, argued that despite government support programs, grants, training initiatives, many township businesses remain stuck, even though we talk much about the township economy.
Yes, and I think, first of all, it's important to recognize that, the informal sector in South Africa is much smaller than what you would find in peer countries. So, those upper middle class economies like ours, and certainly by global averages. And that's not a surprise, because we know that the apartheid government had a concerted effort to keep business ownership by black people, and certainly by the majority low. And so we have not recovered from that. But at the same time, as we say, we don't look at, we talk about the informal sector as a separate thing. But we all know that, say, for example, if we were referring to an own account worker like Ugogo Tengsa Magwinya, that lady goes to Macro to buy flour, to buy sugar, and Macro, of course, if we think about it, or any wholesaler, is a formal business. Yeah. So they are completely connected to the formal business, and in fact, actually, they're part of their value chain.
Yeah.
They may also obviously use, they get maybe in the townships, we have, bread that's delivered to be sold in spaza shops. Again, the very same thing. We know also we sell airtime from Vodacom or MTN. Those people who sell that are also actually very connected to the formal economy. So how we think about it as informal is something of quite a strange thing, because actually they are very much part of the formal
economy. But at the same time, when we talk about formalizing the informal sector, are we then, shall we say, asking Soweto businesses to operate according to Santon rules, for lack of a better way to frame it?
Sure. And I think this is the part that of what we tried to do last year, was to say, let them all register. And it wasn't clear at the time. I guess we were all worried around those issues where we were seeing sick children from spaza shops, and so we wanted to know, who are these people and where are they? And what do they do? The mistake, of course, is that we didn't actually answer the question and the concern that we had. Because it's one thing to register businesses. So, for example, I've got a number that only tells you that, somebody in the government knows something about you. It doesn't tell us anything about the fact that actually maybe we've put in safety standards. And I was really one of those people, Bongani, pre-COVID, that said, stop pushing these people to be registered. Let them do their business and try and find ways to support them. The registration thing actually came, and why it was so important, I guess, and how many of us were wrong who said that, is that then when it was time, that crisis.
Wait, hold on. Were you wrong? I mean, these businesses were given 21 days, I think it was. Yes. Not a muscle twitched.
No.
Then they extended it to February,
yeah,
I think, until next month.
Sure.
Little has changed.
Yeah.
So, and were you wrong?
In a sense, we were because we could not find them to help them during COVID, right? We wanted to help the small businesses because we were on lockdown, and we didn't know who was who, where they are, and what kind of assistance. So the question is really, what kind of registration and what kind of formalization are we talking about, and how do we reach them? And that's really the big question that is important. We are seeing some really good initiatives that will support part of this. So, for example, We know that many businesses now are starting to be, banks are starting to give them, I guess, pay points. There's also some data that will come from that. We're also starting to see, the payments, the national payment system being open to various players in order for the money to be able to move around much quicker. So that will also help them. But certainly what we want to know is there is a lot of data that is available. How do we use that to service that market in a manner that makes sense? So as I said, for example, those wholesalers who consistently see these people coming in and out, who know that, that Gogo is going to be coming in to buy what she's going to buy. How do we use that data to say, actually, we have patterns here. We understand what this is. And how can this help them, for example, to grow those businesses, to access more credit? Because the main thing we really want is that they should graduate from the so-called informal sector. They should actually be growing, employing more people, and perhaps at some stage be able to pay taxes and be part of a thriving ecosystem and a thriving economy.
We obviously need a lot of that data to be able to track growth, to be able to track the number of people the informal sector employs. You've mentioned the potential for tax revenue information. So where is the mismatch occurring? I mean, is it a lack of will by the state to make sure these businesses are registered? Is it that these are simply lawless entrepreneurs?
That is exactly it, that we need a fit-for-purpose regulatory environment. And that really means that we are not just doing something because we are we are in a crisis of poisoning children, but that here actually we think there is something on the other side, that if we know who these people are, what they do, we can actually intervene. We can work together, for example, to build an ecosystem in which banks come together, government comes together, and as we have many times done when we actually regulate, to put together a framework that makes sense, that actually allows us to create an ecosystem that can support them financially, not just to be banked. And I think many people have said, bank, if to include people is to bank them. That's not enough. A bank account is not actually what you need. Perhaps, ways in which they can access credit to grow, because many of them are standing still because they are, it's sort of hand to mouth. Whereas there is some data that could tell us, if I've been buying from the same shop for the past, 5 years, they must have some information that can say, actually, we've seen your track record. Why don't we extend to you perhaps another, 30% of what you've been doing so that we can expand? And those kinds of things are important.
I'm curious about one thing. We often talk, for example, about undocumented migrants, right? And yet, if you think about some of the countries of origin for some of these folks that we expect to have particular documents, there's no such system. There aren't formal birth registers in some of these areas, particularly in war-torn countries. And these folks come here and they open businesses that seem to be thriving. How much is all of this also complicated by the fact that it's not only South Africans we are talking about here? Much of the informal sector actually is run by foreign nationals.
Yes, that's an interesting one, Bongani. And actually, those foreign nationals have relationships with the communities in which they work. You'll find that in some townships, people who go to those plaza shops actually have accounts with them, sort of lines of credit where they work with them. It will be at a difficult time of the month in which they go and, access, get bread, milk, and all of that on credit, and they will pay at a later stage. And that tells us that there is already a system here of recognition. There are relationships between South Africans who are registered and perhaps these people who are not registered. And so there's clearly something that can be said about, if we know that, South Africans who are registered are dealing with these businesses in this manner, how do we actually then tap into that kind of information? How do we tap into that kind of relationship? Because already we know that they know them, right? If somebody is giving you credit, they know you and you know them, because you're going to go there and you're going to give them an amount of money. And that actually, those flows of money also give us an opportunity to really tap into the so-called undocumented, because while they're undocumented, they are very much have relationships with documented people.
Right. So February is coming. Next month, when that deadline looms for registration. You want a fit-for-purpose approach. What should be done?
I think what we should really be trying to do is to say, if we are trying to, what are the kinds of things we support systems we can provide just outside of registration? Because it's one thing for you to get a registered number. what is this information going to help us to do? And actually also as we register them, we are trying to locate them for support purposes. We understand what they do. Many people will say, for example, we own a business because we've got a registration number. Now, that's not really owning a business if you have a registration number. It's just that, somebody has told you that, you went to the CIPC or you've got into the municipality, knows just something about you. We should be actually extending that registration in a manner that gives us useful information that allows us to intervene, to make interventions, whether those interventions are for health and safety for communities, or that actually we can advance proper support systems.
And we have to look at it from the business's perspective as well, that they've got an incentive for registering because there are clear benefits if they do.
Absolutely.
Appreciate your time. Xhanti Payi, the economist, a director at Inani Strategies.
Current events, developing stories,
tough questions.
Your voice making a difference.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa.